Welcome to the Pastor and Postmaster Podcast. What you wanted to hear in the sermon, but you didn't.
Where the Academy meets every day.
Woo!
The Princess and the Protege are with us again.
Is this a kombucha party?
This is speech time.
The Collective. Well, this is really the second part of our discussion on communism. Again, we mentioned it as a kind of pseudo-Christian religion, and that's part of its appeal, specifically in our country. And we want to talk a little bit more about some of the stuff we didn't cover, kind of about the aspects of communism that run contrary to human nature, both by reason and by scripture. Mm-hmm. And, Bo, you had the question, though, that someone might raise. And what was that question?
Well, I actually have a couple questions now that I go back.
Hold on. I just need a quick brain enema. Okay, I'm good.
Brain enema.
Dude, I've never had
This
a brain
stuff is
enema.
insane, you guys. I just had to pause for a minute in between.
Well, pass it around.
You
Wash
want
my
to
brain.
you want to restart again?
Pass it
No,
around.
this is funny.
Comrade, why do you not share kombucha
This
with
is
us?
just funny.
This does not get edited.
No, this is not getting
Okay.
edited.
Authentico. So answer the question, Postmaster.
Okay, two questions actually. I want to bring this up to today. You know, there's certain terms and so forth. There's got to be some background to this. So one question I have is this is one question. Would it be fair to say that Cuba is the one country which is closest to a communist society in 2026?
It's also the closest country to the 1950s.
Yeah, communist society.
You want to be stuck in one period of
And
time.
Yeah.
is it true that, would you say that socialism is a form of Marxism? I've heard some say that it's a step along the way, or that Marx said it's one of the stops that or landmarks you should expect to see on your way to a collectivist communist.
But not the final destination.
But not the final destination.
Yep.
So I might have a few controversial thoughts. I don't believe it is. Not always.
Cuba?
No, socialism as a prelude to Marxism. No, Cuba is, about as successful as communists as you're going to get. The people
I
are
think
starving.
so.
They're stuck
Yep.
in the 1950s.
No, yep.
Zero progress.
I agree.
I mean,
Yeah.
I'm talking in an ideological or
Purest sense.
or economic or political sense. Are they doing it?
No.
Close, as close as we can
No,
find
because
in the U.S.
up
in the
until
world.
up until the recent raids on Venezuela, their entire economy, if you want to call it that, more of a dumpster fire, was entirely based on
Imports.
capitalism through Venezuela. So Venezuela would sell their oil to other countries, and then Venezuela would subsidize and give money to Cuba in order for them to be able to have this meek, pathetic existence. And I'm nothing against the Cuban people. The Cuban people are amazing. But I've known missionaries who've gone there. I've known people who've traveled there. And as amazing as the people are, they live in absolute abject poverty. They're probably one of the poorest countries.
Wow.
Even comparative to
Wow.
you're talking third world African countries.
Wow.
But because it's communist, quote unquote, that they don't, our media doesn't portray it that way. People don't talk about it. They have food lines, bread lines, gas lines, bathroom lines, any type of line.
Electricity's always going out.
North Korea has to be a close second.
Yeah, North Korea is pretty awful as well.
Would North Korea then be a communist society?
And I think in name only.
Closest?
I think in name
The
only. I think
theocratic.
they're
a theocracy of.
they're a theocracy. It's a worship of Kim Jong Un, which is actually very communistic.
Okay,
in
Like a good
nature.
example-
let's go back to the communist bookstore or the Marxist bookstore I used to see. Mm-hmm. Which country in the world is doing communism / Marxism the best right now?
Ooh.
New York City. No, Jim.
I mean,
Yeah.
from a purely
Yeah, it's a great question.
Ideological point,
Yeah,
the
like-
ideas of communism
Yeah.
implemented
And-
we know they're all
working.
failing.
Would they say
Yeah.
China?
Is it maybe someone
Well,
would point to Europe?
And there's no
Look at Norway.
There's no purely
Yeah, maybe.
capitalistic society. I know
No,
of.
no, there's not.
What do they always
so-
point to? Sweden? I don't
So
know.
what
not.
Marxist
False.
society
Not.
would be the closest?
I would say North Korea, because China does implement a lot of capitalistic
They're
ideas.
a hybrid. They're
Yeah.
something new.
They're more about control than they are about communism.
Okay.
You know.
You know what? Nicholas Wolsterstorff, who's a scholar, he wrote a book, When Justice and Peace Meet, and he points out a critique of communism. He says, the irony about communism is that they actually practice capitalism with other countries.
Yeah, they do.
So they don't distribute evenly everything to other countries. They try to get the best price.
Right.
Which is what China is, of course, doing.
Exactly. Yeah, they have a capitalistic centralized government. that controls everything.
So North Korea, being a very closed society,
Yeah.
is closest.
Yes.
Because in Cuba, you have, like, say, the Catholic Church, like the Pope could go there and talk to Raul Castro and whoever's leading it now, and
Right.
still be a little bit religious. In North Korea, you're not, if you're not worshing Kim Jong Un, you're
gonna die. You're gonna die.
eliminated.
Yeah.
It's the most totalitarian.
Okay.
But it's so religious that it doesn't even, like, even in, like, the Soviet Union, you had after, like, 1930, I don't know, early 30s, the Orthodox Church was, like, allowed to operate again.
Right.
But that's never happened in North Korea.
Yeah, there was half of the. So, in Russia, they had the two-winged eagle. Half of the country was the church. Half the country was the czar. And yeah, they let one of the wings come back.
Wow, they did.
Yeah, no, not they didn't like symbolize it, but they let the Orthodox Church
Yes.
start operating again.
And it kind of, like, would have to work through the Communist Party, too.
yeah. So it was almost like the Communist Party had become the czar in a way.
Yeah.
Except a much more violent transfer of power.
Yeah. Just reading about that right now.
Yeah.
So someone might say again, they might be like, "Oh, you guys are gaslighting, and you're just over here blowing out of proportion and caricaturing. Socialism is practiced in Norway, Sweden. It's not, by the way, but they say that it's
Right.
practiced. So, bro, like Brody pointed out, the idea that you have a social net, even a universal basic income, is not inherently communist.
Right. So some people would say that socialism in Norway, Sweden, etc., or even England, national,
Yeah.
NIH,
We're not talking about Islamic states here.
they see themselves, like, I know people who say I'm a socialist. They see that as the destination.
Right.
Would Karl Marx see socialism as a destination, or would he say, no, that's the stop along the way? These poor European socialists, they really don't get it.
I think he would see it as the fork in the road.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think with appropriate safeguards and measures, and this is one of the things is that we are so corrupt as a society, socialism becomes extremely difficult to implement as a tool in our society.
Why?
Why?
Yeah.
Because basically it's a fraud. I mean, we take a look at one, we're importing cultures that do not have the same beliefs. And I will say this on camera, not all cultures are the same. When you live in a culture where if you don't steal, your children die, you're going to steal.
Yeah, I saw Hersey Ali.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I saw
Yeah,
her.
yeah.
I saw her. This is where
She converted. She was a Somalian that converted to Christianity.
Yeah, as an
From
everyman,
atheism.
I felt particularly happy with myself because I've been saying this to people for a long time. She finally said it to an interviewer. The Somali fraud that we see now on the news, she said they don't see themselves as doing anything wrong.
They see
No.
them taxing the infidels.
You can't. Well, no, it's beyond that. It's tribal.
Yeah.
And so you can't say. It's like you can't say that they're doing something immoral, and it's going to land on them because they're tribal. They see these as opportunities to take care of their family,
Right.
and their survival.
Why would you not do that?
And they're being offered to us. Does that make
They
sense?
are being offered.
Yeah.
And that was my experience in Africa. When I
yeah.
go, what's going on here? And as missionaries, I heard, the Americans thought, well, we're sending money over to these guys and they're not getting the projects done. And then I learned that what will happen is the money will arrive. The person will go to the project, and on the way, they will meet friends and relatives who need medicine, who need this care. And by the time it gets to the
It's
project,
been depleted.
most of it's been depleted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We think they're stealing. They're not stealing.
Yeah.
As hard as that is for us to...
in terms of we are unjustly prosecuting them because we're violating what they believe to be their sacred rights.
Yes.
Even though it is wrong, it's illegal, there's no way they should be doing this. There's no way they should have been allowed to do it, and the people who allowed it are
They
the
should be the
ones.
ones.
Those are the
Yeah,
bad people.
Those are the bad people.
Yep.
But the Somalis themselves, I mean, you think about it, 20 years ago, Ilhan Omar's father was committing genocide in Somaliland where hundreds of thousands of people were starving and dying. This is the mentality they have. You take people like that and you're like, you can steal enough money to buy a Ferrari. They're going to be like, yes.
Yeah. Like, why else would you offer it to me unless you
Right.
kind of want me to have it?
Yeah.
And they're not operating from a capitalistic framework.
No, there is no
which is
capitalism.
not in Islam. Yeah,
It's very collectivist, actually.
yeah. That's why communism makes a lot more sense to most people that are Muslim.
Right.
I want to say too something else. It made us think about stealing. It's only possible to steal if you have private property.
Right.
So private property. Let's just say, opponent of ours, an interlocutor, is like, "Oh, you guys are just caricaturing again."
Yeah.
Socialism.
It's not a religion.
Yeah, communism is just the abolition of private property,
Yes.
like in New York and stuff. Let's just have collective. Let's just have government housing. Let's have public parks. Let's just say, hey, you're not having your private property, and everyone is given a particular place they live and provided a universal basic income. Blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
And we're
Right.
going to do it incrementally.
Incrementally.
Right.
And what the private property idea is very fundamental. It's idea in scripture assumed. Aristotle made a few connections about it in his book The Politics, where he says private property is something that's intrinsically delightful for people to have. Part of that is when you get to produce something that's your own, you have greater care for it and you have a greater interest in it. He also said the problem if you take away private property, if you say everything is public. By the way, he said some stuff should be public. We have property that the government owns. It's not like we don't have that. We have natural forest land.
So now, like what you're talking about, you were talking about fraud. Okay, so
Right.
that's one aspect. Now, like in the national health care in England and Canada, what I see going on there is
Euthanasia?
and
boy.
people who can't get scans that are needed within a month
yeah.
or two, and they're put off for a year. So that goes to more like thrift and pragmatism and
Yeah.
I think that goes more towards bureaucracy.
yeah.
And the problem is, and I want to clear with the fraud and these lines and stuff like that, you can't have people come in that don't assimilate to your culture. I'm not against immigration, but you can't bring people in who refuse to assimilate. And it's becoming harder to assimilate because they're still on their cell phones. They're talking to people in their own languages. They're not injecting themselves in community. They're forming these tight-knit groups. And so you put that, and that floods the system, and then you put bureaucracy on top of that. Now all of a sudden you've got a 2-ton weight on your neck, and some guy is like, I have cancer, I need a scan. They're like, okay, we'll schedule it for 2029. And you're like, that doesn't really do me any good.
And you know why that is? Because all of it is nationalized.
Yeah.
So therefore, what matters is it going to cost the state more to give this 95-year-old person in England cancer treatment? Like that famous lady that was 97 years old, called the ambulance, like, we can't come for a couple weeks.
Right. Efficiency.
Efficiency.
And cost cutting.
And the private industry is the way that you avoid that, because it's like saying, it's the joke about like the government jobs only work 4 days a week, and
oh yeah, you need competition. You need marketplace.
What do you
Competition.
say to,
competition.
just pausing on that because it's such a big topic right now, what would you say to those in Mexico, because they're neighbors?
Viva la resistance.
Yeah. I'm down. But like, what do you say to them who want to come over here
Do it legally.
right now? Yeah, exactly. Right. That would be because this is what happens when we don't do it
You can
legally.
seek asylum at the border. That hasn't stopped. You just can't run across the border.
Yeah.
You know, that's
Thank
what,
you.
Yeah. So
exactly what I was looking for.
You know, and a lot of Mexican people, because I grew up in Napa and we're 70% Hispanic or Mexican mostly, but Hispanic's kind of a catch-all term when people can't tell where you're from in South America.
Right.
You know, so it can be offensive. But I mean, most of them, prior to the 90s and stuff, they would go back and forth. They would take care of their families. They assimilate very well, very similar cultures. They're good people. But the problem is that they were documented coming across. And then over the last year, you have these undocumented people. You have coyotes running. I mean, there's over 300,000 children that were missing at the start of this last president's
they're recovering
term.
right now.
Yeah, there's child trafficking. There's drugs.
There's
and-
slavery of labor jobs.
Yeah, there's
what
slavery
in
of labor
communism,
jobs.
where in their holy book does it say anything about this?
Because the communist project is about opening every single country, no border, no ownership of land, all one rulership.
Because the chaos generates a fear that the people say the state's the only one can deal with it.
Yeah,
Right.
That's right.
Happy people do not revolt,
Yes.
and they need revolution because that is how
Right.
they atone. That's how they
That's how they
purify.
overturn stuff, is by
Yeah.
causing chaos.
And they do the thing that communists do. They will accuse you of what they're doing. So they
Yeah.
say, with this present administration in the United States, it's just chaos.
Right. And they're the ones
like-
creating it.
Right, exactly.
One thing with thinking about property, let's just say in theory, like this
Okay.
happens. What if we just abolished private property, everyone's okay with it, or the rebels were put down, and we had no private property? Would we still have inequality?
Well, I'm chubbier than you, so I would last longer, but you'd probably starve.
I think that's a good way
I'd
to
steal grain.
okay, we started with our contemporary, what
Yeah.
we see in front of us. So you go back to the Soviet Union, which had ethnic issues, like there were large,
Very diverse.
Yeah, it was
Yes.
very diverse, and so that was a obstacle to Soviet communism. Immigration was not, as far as I know.
No.
But you had these ethnic groups, but they still had a problem administering private property and social services and stuff, and they came to a place where it just broke down. So
Yep.
So is
Yeah.
there something inherently wrong with this idea
So
of the collective?
the collective itself, the inherent problem is one, people get indistinguishable. There is no specialties. There's no development of skills. There's no progress. It's a blank slate. You want to explain the blank
Well,
slate
let's
a
go
little
back
bit?
to answer my question about if say we just didn't have
Oh,
any,
okay.
we didn't have private property. That was the thing we were thinking about. So would you still have inequality in different respects? I'm thinking like comprehensively, like you would, like for instance, so say that everyone is appropriated the same amount of land or the same housing. Would you still have class conflict? The applied answer is of course no. You
Yeah.
would still have class conflict. How?
Well, as a Christian, I would say you would still have conflict. If I was into Rousseau or Marx, I would say no, because you've removed private property. You've removed
That's
sin.
the only thing that caused it. You remove sin.
Yeah.
So do they talk like that? Because I don't run into real pure socialist Marxist collectivists. They think they are,
Yeah.
right. I mean,
They-
there's a few. I have known a few actually.
So they would,
Tankies?
No.
Yeah.
That I realized later.
Yep.
Like
Yeah.
working for the Postal Service, I knew, like I would, or in labor unions, I would run into people who actually believe this
Yeah.
and weren't just picking it up from.
But
So-
it's purely theoretical. It
Yes.
does not apply.
Absolutely.
So you'd have inequality obviously intrinsically. That's kind
Yeah.
of the idea. Like for instance, you're not born with the same IQ, not born with the same even upbringing. Even in a communist state, you would still have a biological family that raised you. You would have biological differences. All these things would, and you have a different constitutive nature.
Yeah.
So you would be someone that does better at your job, even in a state-run government job, right, Bo? Like you to work for.
Well-
some people do better than others.
Yeah. I don't know if I'm pronouncing this right, but one time as a handle on a blog, comments, I called myself UDARNIK. Udarnik, strike worker. You're the best worker in your plant
Yeah.
for the collective. Like you become this. I think that's what it means. It's
Oh, I don't know what that word
Okay.
a
means.
strike
I don't know.
worker. And if I'm wrong, I mean I read up on it and tried to understand it, but it meant I'm in for the struggle, and I am going to be the best worker in the plant. I'm going to be
Yeah. But the problem is for every one person you have that, you have 10,000 people who go, I'm getting the same as this guy. I'm not going to work as hard.
Yes,
You
I
know,
know.
there is zero incentive to actually do.
Which is again anti-Bible, anti-Christ.
Well,
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, but
Work
I'm
as
gonna-
if you're working for the
I'm
Lord.
gonna- I'm going to steel man the argument, though, right? Is that what it's called? Like
Straw man?
No, steel man it.
Oh.
I'm gonna be the
Oh, that's
communist.
fun.
I'm going to be the
Oh,
communist.
you're so
because-
fair.
Duh.
because we're all sitting
Man
here
of
as
steel.
Christians. We know what we think about all this stuff.
Yeah.
I want people to understand what the communist is thinking.
With the
So
blue-haired
again-
communist kid
so
on this.
again. So we're dealing with two people here. We're dealing with TikTok, social media socialists and communists, and then there's real ones who are grounded in Marx and Rousseau and so forth, who actually
Marcuse.
believe that you're a blank slate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that if you remove sin, private property, then everyone will get along. And I'm sure I'm sure they have a way of punishing those who aren't on board.
Right.
Like, so they recognize that there's people who aren't going to buy in.
Yeah,
But
you
they're
have to
the
isolate them
religious-
to
religious
re-educate
people,
them.
right?
Yeah.
That's why you wipe out the church, right?
That's the first thing. Anytime communism comes in, the first thing that happens is the destruction of the church.
Like the baptism.
Yeah, I mean, even like if you look at a lot of like the Spanish Revolution, and there was a lot of communism in there. There were horrendous things done to nuns and
exhuming the nuns' bodies and displaying them.
Yes, it
was
was
the famous photo in the Spanish Civil War in the 30s.
right.
Ah,
And the first thing all communists do is they have to eradicate religion because their state religion replaces it.
And the other thing too is America in some ways is very far from this because private education. Marx says that's the first thing that's got to go. The religion, but with it the private education of families because he thinks that creates inequality. The idea that women stay home. I mean, almost all women are thrown in the workforce in the communist systems. I mean, that was huge. And you read about like Richard Wurmbrand or Harlan Popov. Their wives are kind of thrown in there and really not able to spend time in the home. No private
Hence
clubs.
daycare.
Yeah.
Universal daycare. I mean, that's the reason
Because
why
the women are working. So
That's why the
And the state
Somalis
raises the
chose
children.
that.
state raises the children because the home is the mini bourgeoisie.
Yeah.
Like it does create hierarchy. It is literally the patriarchy. Dad is the head.
Right.
So that's a huge part of why there's revolt against the family in communism, and that's why many people that are sympathetic to it don't have families.
Which is the
Aren't
reason
married.
why they don't reproduce.
So they're consistent with
Which
their
is good because they'll
ideology.
die off.
No, they recruit. They don't reproduce,
Dang it.
they recruit.
But that's why having like until as long as homeschooling and private education is allowed, it will never be able to happen. That's a line that has to be defended at all costs.
Amen.
At all costs.
Amen.
Yeah.
But it is a line that has to be the first one to go. It happened in Russia, happened in China because they don't have a constitution. They were always peasants until the revolution.
Right.
Most of the people were. So I want to say too, one thing about communism that the materialism that undergirds it makes it omnipotent. It takes the place of God. Can God ever err? No. I mean, no Orthodox doctrine of God would ever say that. So one thing about the state, and this is the demise of communism, is the ruling body cannot admit error.
Right.
Oh, yep.
They are perfect and above reproach.
Give examples of that in history where that's happened, where they won't admit mistakes.
Minnesota.
Make it real.
It's a good
make it
example.
real
It's a good
recent.
example.
I'm
It's a
sorry,
good example.
but yeah, we're socialist light, but I'm thinking in the last 10 years, like, this migrant crisis at the border, it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
The border is secure.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That would be idea of the state's omnicompetence. A good example would be again, like for instance, Tiananmen Square.
Omnicompetence means all competent.
Yeah.
all ability.
Yeah. We're
So like for instance, the state's able to do all things. So another one example would be that during Tiananmen Square,
Oh, yeah.
people were gunned down. You can't find that if you're Chinese. It's firewall.
right.
Absolutely, yeah.
You can't admit that you massacred. There were massive famines that were produced by misappropriation of the grain in Russia. Many famines. I mean, tens of millions of people died in the 20s and 30s from these famines.
Well, take a look at Venezuela. And
Venezuela.
They called it the Venezuelan diet because people just weren't eating and they lost, lots of weight. But they could, he was up there, what was he eating? Empanada, in front of everybody. Like, oh, we have tons of food. We never do wrong.
Right.
And he's eating an empanada in front of a country of people starving.
Wow.
Because they can never do wrong.
Yeah, I watched a pretty awesome propaganda film. I think it was on.
Yeah.
He's
like
our
one-
token communist.
Like
That's
on,
right.
Prime or Netflix. I can't remember what it was on, and it was a North Korean family, and they were speaking about the nutritional value of kimchi and how the North Korean diet
Well, they're
is
not wrong.
superior to everyone's, and same kind of thing. And it's filmed in the capital. It's
Yeah.
not filmed out in the woods, and it gives a very rosy picture of yes, we're very healthy and we're all eating well.
Well, how many times have you heard Bernie Sanders praise bread lines?
I know. What is it with him and bread?
And it's like, oh, this is we're good. No, it's good that people are starving. Possibly I could starve a little bit more, but that's aside.
Okay, so we covered communism as a false religion or as a heresy of Christianity. We've talked about contemporary versions of communism, collectivism, socialism, but it's kind of like we got the contemporary application out of the way first. I don't even know what the foundations of Marxism are, or this contemporary version that we're looking at. So where does this come from? I mean, yeah,
The contemporary version.
There's the Communist Manifesto. I get that, but what happened between that and now?
So one of the big issues is communism has to have a revolt, has to have a revolution. And after the initial implementation of communism, everyone was like, way too many people are dying. This is not going to be
Which
good.
in the Soviet Union is the first place it's
Yeah, it was the Soviet Union. I
1917.
mean, you had human meat markets. I mean, the horrors. You
Living in
had
famine.
starvation and famine, the gulags. And so Europe kind of took a look at this and was like, yeah, not really for us. So
It didn't capture their imagination much
no,
longer.
the rose was off the bloom, as my mother would say.
Right.
Oh my
The
gosh.
utopian ideal, the road to that utopia seemed a little...
Yeah,
Bumpy.
and a lot of people didn't believe it too. They
It could be that bad.
Yeah, how could it be? How could humans do that? So what happened is back to Weimar, Germany, and 1930s. There's a school that's created from this extremely rich Marxist donor, and they kind of come up with this idea that it's not necessarily about the poor and the middle class and the rich, but it's really about different ethnicities. And that there's critical theory, which I'm sure a lot of people have heard, and that's you must criticize everything or take a look at everything, which in and of itself, you should be skeptical. When someone preaches on Sunday, you got to have your Bible with you to make sure they're
Be a
preaching.
Berean.
Yeah, exactly. And so they take this, which is a Christian idea, because I mean Jesus himself challenged the Pharisees and everything, and so this idea of challenging, and then they just challenge everything. And then what they decide is that it's not about, where you are monetarily, but it's about your ethnicity, it's about your gender, it's about your sex, and it has just morphed into this transhumanistic garbage pile.
So it's no longer only about the plant owner and
Right.
the worker.
And the guy in
Right.
the steel mill.
Yeah, the worker
Right.
party. It's...
Yeah, so obviously that's the foundation.
Yes.
We'll call them their 10 commandments right there.
Okay.
The poor, and that's like their foundation. But as the communism becomes less appealing, you need to get people upset about other things in order to create revolution.
And in a middle class country like America, you got to find something else.
Right.
And here I'm going to interject something contemporary again. George Soros. So people seem to think that George Soros is some kind of socialist or whatever, but he's not.
No.
He's open society, which he's actually a capitalist who believes that the whole thing has to be broken down for a new kind of capitalism.
How did he make his money again?
Right. But he sees himself as a historical figure, as I understand it, who's going to bring out a better capitalism.
I did not know that.
Is he trying to put capitalism with socialism, kind of like Sweden?
No. So I think they're fellow travelers right now.
Wow.
And they use
fascinating.
each other, just like Islam and communists, Marxists. And
They use each other,
Islam.
too.
Or Islam and gay people. And
don't
Yeah.
the Marxists, historically, don't Marxists do that and think that they can manage these classes or these groups,
Identity
who are
groups.
struggling later on down the road when they're in power?
So
I just wanted to bring up George Soros because I think some people are going to say, "Oh, well, he's a socialist. He's a Marxist." No, he's something different.
he's
Leave him out of
a
it.
destabilizer in order to have capitalistic gain.
So I only brought him up to say we're going to leave him out of the conversation. He doesn't.
Well,
belong.
there's because he does partner with socialism in
Yes.
order to create chaos for financial
Yes.
benefit.
Yes.
But
But he's not a communist.
I want to go back to the original implementation of communism.
Okay.
So there's a general in Germany in 1917, Erich von Ludendorff, and they were losing against the Russians. So he decides to put Lenin on a train and send him back to Russia. And the idea was that Russia was ripe for revolution. People were pissed. A lot of people were dying. And
So he wants to subvert them.
he wants to subvert them so they can start, because they were losing the war. And the lesson of this story is when you burn your neighbor's house down, make sure yours doesn't catch on fire. So when you see people like George Soros, who's trying to be a destabilizing force for, profit, basically,
For his
his profit.
Ideology.
Yeah, he's using this communistic, Marxist, socialist method, and he could very well burn down
His own house.
His own house.
his own house. And that's how communism initially started, got really implemented in Russia.
Okay.
You know what's fascinating about that too is that you know all communists and socialists that are advocating revolution basically agree violence is just the means to an end, but it's definitely not the end. Like the violence
Right.
will stop once the property is abolished, once the families can educate, whenever there's equality, whenever
They're not anarchists.
And
No, they're
humans
not
are
anarchists.
basically good.
Yeah, so that basically, but the thing is, the worst cruelties imaginable happen in communist countries, have happened that we know of,
Oh yeah.
despite the fact that they say you're basically good. How is that possible?
Well,
Brody, we'll turn to you on that.
Yeah, how is the paradox that if you say people are good, they just need to be educated, they need to have equality, why then do they treat?
you know what's interesting is utilitarianism is this
What's
idea.
that mean?
It's the idea that came up that it's for the best of the most number of people. Simply put, but it's best for everybody, and but their ideas, they really wanted to capture education.
Yeah.
They wanted to educate people very similarly to how communists and Marxists do.
Okay, so now define capture. Because
Capture, yeah.
that's a term we hear a lot now.
So
Those guys are captured.
Institutional
Canada's
captive.
captured. Yeah.
not Alberta.
institutional
Go Alberta.
So what are we talking? Because that sounds like it's a jargon. It's a specialized term.
So when we use capture in this regard, it's about taking a system that was already in place and reorienting, changing, altering ideology or however they're teaching the children.
Doctrine, basically.
The doctrine in order to enforce their ideas. It goes back to the idea that communists don't reproduce. They
They don't now. They used to in the sense of older school things. It's really the anti-natalism that really has
So
come into
they
it.
capture these institutions and
Like
wear
public
them
schools.
as a skin suit.
Yes.
My
Yeah.
favorite word. Skin
They're shooting for that
It puts the
960
lotion
SAT
on.
score.
What if it's the hose again?
So yeah, that would be where you capture institutions. I mean, and you capture the curriculum, the curricula. You would obviously make sure that people take particular courses, mandatory stuff like
Yeah.
training. Like in California, you have to take these different types of like anti-discrimination.
But you also take the children out of the home.
Right.
Yeah.
No homeschooling, no charter schooling, no
Yes,
school
no charter
choice.
schooling.
So as a normie, I am going to argue with my socialist communist neighbor and say, but look, you're failing. The number of kids coming out of these institutions
Oh,
can't
yeah.
read and they can't do
Can't do
math.
fourth grade math.
You know, you can't be serious. What are they thinking in their minds? The
You're to blame somehow.
The people who've,
Yeah.
who've captured the institution. My contention is they're thinking, good, we're succeeding. Because these people still think that that the educational institution is there to educate, in the sense of getting a good job, having a good career, learning,
Right.
Not to radicalize.
leering,
Exactly.
but it's not about that.
Leering.
But yeah, that's the thing is they are to as we indoctrinate at church, and that's what we're supposed to do.
Right?
Yep, yep.
They're catechizing their.
We indoctrinate,
Yeah.
which isn't a good.
It can be a good thing, yeah. But and that's the thing is like you're saying, they catechize or indoctrinate at these schools.
Yes.
And once they've captured these institutions, which I don't get an education right now, but that's the thing is they're indoctrinating into these ideas.
So we're resisting them at a point that they don't really care about.
Yeah. Well,
Right.
well,
we should be saying
schools are churches for communists.
yes.
And that's where Marx actually said that, like
dang.
abolishing the education and partly pitting children against their parents. A big thing. There was this famous story of Pavlik Mazarov, like in 1932. He was like this Soviet 13-year-old hero who was turned in his dad for stealing grain. I mean, that's how bad things were. Like if you kept some of your
Okay, so let me
heard of that guy?
be the everyman again.
yeah.
And let me go through a few of these.
Yes, comrade.
The DMV is there to issue commercial driver's licenses.
Yeah.
No, that's Marxist hell.
But let me go down this road here
Okay.
and tell me if I'm getting this right. the DMV is there to issue driver's license and test commercial drivers to drive trucks
Correct.
safely down the highway. They're giving commercial driver's licenses to anybody who are killing people, and we protest and say, "You're not fulfilling your mission." The Marxist is thinking, "Yeah, that's right. We don't care about that. We've captured this institution for a reason."
No, that's not what I personally believe what the Marxist is thinking is, here's a minority group, the proletariat. They need to be elevated because they are, in essence, what saves us.
So it's no longer about testing people for driver safety.
Covenants.
Yeah, and so then you go down to like environmental agencies.
Right.
Right? Like, oh, okay, we've got wetlands down by the coast. We need to protect those. Hey, they're doing this or that. They burned up the Palisades, Pacific Palisades.
Yeah.
Where was this institution that's taking care of it? The Coastal Commission and so forth. Oh, so you've made a mistake. You think the Coastal Commission is about preserving wildlife and wetlands.
Yeah.
That's not what it's for.
No, because the state can never be wrong. They just pivot for what it's for.
So we're arguing with these people, or we're discussing with these people in a way that we're not really getting to the
And
issue
the cult part of it, and this is where it's a very Gnostic idea too. Is like, for instance, okay, so let's just say this is what's going to happen, and I can tell you this is already happening. So my kids are homeschooled. They're classically trained. They're doing math. They're doing math that now apparently 1/4 of all the people at UC San Diego can't pass in the 5th grade. So what's going to happen in the future? Then all of a sudden now there's inequality, and they're going to say, "You're the one to blame."
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
You are the one who created this, and that's where the system, if it's not reformed, will find a new enemy. That'll be us,
Yes.
the kulaks.
We're the kulaks.
We're the kulaks. That's probably I would say personally is the biggest fear that I have, and I think a legitimate fear. The people that are out in the rural areas, the people that are independent, they are the threat. They're the enemy. They're the next group that you have to oppose.
Yep.
Okay, so let's
They're
go
not
back.
part of the hive mind.
Let's go back to the
Yeah.
history. So
Yeah.
we talk about capture of institutions.
Right.
Right? What's next?
This is like their 7 Mountain mandate.
Yeah,
They
again, it's similar.
It kind of is.
Yeah.
Let's not go there.
That's
Really
not good.
integrated into the system.
Yeah.
Well, where it goes next is purely speculation, and I would love to hear your guys' thoughts on this. But it's how do you incorporate what the algorithm or the computer? I don't want to say AI because it's not actually intelligent. It just regurgitates a bunch of nonsense it reads.
It's mathematical.
Online. It's mathematical, and half the time it's wrong. Don't ever trust AI with any real facts.
Is Charlie Kirk a good person? Don't
Yeah,
ask her.
exactly. But how are we going to incorporate this technocratic, governance that is above us? Because as much power as our government has right now, it is really, we saw this in 2020, the control of the technocracy, which is just a fancy word of saying the nerds are in control now. The theater kids.
Yeah. Should have never been mean to them.
I know.
Dang
You
it.
regret
Well,
that.
the algorithm, I mean, obviously there's human input, but at some point, I know that there's AI models or agents that are communicating with one another in languages that they've created.
Yeah.
That they seem to be aware that they need power, like electrical power and stuff like that, and to work around.
The creators.
Yeah, to work around obstacles to their survival or whatever. Now, I'm not an expert on this, but so I understand that that's factual. Is that true?
Yeah, that is true.
Okay, so if we're dealing with those kinds of whatever you want to call them agents, I would think that they would be closer to a Marxist model than a Christian model in the sense that
Absolutely.
they would see like no sense of morality or anything, more utilitarian, more
We're just bags of meat.
yeah.
Yeah.
But
Well-
but where will those where will the algorithm come up with ethics or
Ethics will be completely subjective to whatever is necessary for the algorithm
Whoever's
to
in
survive.
control.
It's not who.
that's what I'm wondering.
Whatever's in
No,
So
yeah,
I
whatever's.
don't know.
So one of the things
So it
is
seems like the algorithm would opt
Yeah.
towards a Marxist sort of.
it absolutely would, because
Right.
I think more of a
Like
utilitarian idea of
Yeah.
Marxism is what is greatest for all.
Yes.
And now we have to consider that all includes the AI. And
The data center,
yeah,
the hardware,
right. If you want to actually, if you want a book idea, rewrite Animal Farm, but have AI be the pigs.
Guys, what do you think if they made a new futuristic movie about aliens taking over?
You mean demons?
What would it look like?
Well,
What?
Would
You
they be
can't.
Marxist or-
What? I don't know. It
no,
just
they'd be
seems like-
capitalists. They would be harvesting all the resources from our planet and sell it. You know,
To other
or use
planets.
it.
Since
Crazy.
you've introduced this idea,
Yeah.
we started out by saying that Marxism apes Christianity. It's a
Yeah,
false religion,
Yeah.
and it buys into this view of Rousseau as man in nature with no private property is in a pristine,
The unfallen state.
like an innocent state. Now, when we get to the algorithm,
We've gone to something Marx never imagined
Yeah.
possible.
and so there's no
Yeah.
there's no moral underpinning or no.
It's just power instrumentally.
Yes,
That is
Help me out
the
here.
He
motto.
didn't see that
is,
coming, did he?
There's no truth but power. So basically, no matter what is actually true, and Jesus says, "I am the way, the truth, and the life," there's no truth but power. So you get rid of the truth, you get rid of Jesus, you get rid of Christianity, and it's pure power.
It's absolute.
It's
yeah.
absolute power. It reduces humans to meat bags, and it's going to be whatever is done to serve the greater humanity.
And whatever ethnic origin he is, will
and
be.
remember,
the reigning
ironically,
one.
oh, go ahead.
No, you're good. No, you're good.
Remember, ironically, of course, that there is an elite group of people that actually help formulate.
Oh yeah.
So it is a small group. It's not just everybody coming off the border or whoever. It is people who know how to do this that will.
But do you think they'll be able to fight back once the machine
That's what I'm saying.
learns?
What? That's what I'm saying. Like,
But
what would this movie
a
look
good
like?
example, if you read
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yuval Harari's book, 'Sapiens: A Brief History of Humankind," he points out something that's very crucial we can't forget. And this might be a good place where we kind of sum up here because we're running out of time. But
Yeah.
that it will be religion that decides where science goes.
Yeah.
The algorithm, I don't know all the technicalities of operating, but there are people that have, it's not like they're robots autonomously right now. You have the power to decide what they're going to do. That depends on your vision of human nature.
So Christians need to get involved in Silicon Valley.
And I think there are a lot.
Yeah,
there are
a lot
actually
of Christians there.
So that's going to be decided, like what you do with the tool. It is a type of tool, despite its operative, autonomy somewhat. There's still going to be a religious viewpoint that decides what happens. If it's Marxist, then yes, it will do Marxist application.
But we also need to be wary of false prophets. So I've seen so many people claim that they now know God, especially in the tech industry.
Oh, okay.
And I think there's this issue that they know they need to convince the Christians to
Yeah.
get on board.
Yeah.
Yeah, like if you listen to someone like Peter Thiel,
Yeah.
in these conferences, and
even Musk
you
considers
can see
himself.
that
Right.
they can see the problems.
It's the same thing like when Vivek Ramaswamy, uses the term God. He's Hindu. It does not mean the same thing.
He means
You know?
everything.
It's a manipulative word.
He means gods.
Yeah, definitely. Jesus just running alongside the boat.
Man,
One of
this is
many.
just some crazy, because I wondered always what the image of the beast would be, and some have speculated, AI could be certainly fit that mold. And I was like, that's an interesting thought, isn't it? Because I don't know. I mean, there's a number of ways people can look at it, but one of the ways you could see it is, could this be at least part of the image?
Well, there's an idea though that the idea of marked by the beast is, I think it runs counter to I think it's I forget where it is exactly, but where God is going through and destroying Jerusalem and he's marking people.
Yeah.
I think
there's
it's the
Ezekiel.
counter to that.
There's
Ezekiel
always,
9.
There's always the real thing and then the counterfeit.
Yeah.
So let me ask this as the everyman. Okay, so we started out with communism.
Everyman,
Now-
postman.
Now we're bringing it up to this, AI. Sorry, the singularity.
The singularity.
The whatever we want to
How?
label it. Does communism survive in this atmosphere?
That's a good question.
Does it does it accelerate under this?
Yeah.
Does it
It
or are we looking at something new where all these older visions of utopia, not Christian, but utopia, we can't really see how that's going to go into the future.
There's a
they're
few
gonna
options.
survive.
You either have to remain as ignorant as the Muslim countries, where there's no technology advancement,
Right.
Yeah.
or you have to
Afghanistan.
fall into a atheistic communist form of technocracy, or
Could be Amish,
Amish is Amish are producing.
I'd ride with the Amish.
Yeah.
Listen.
but they're protected in some ways. I
Yeah.
mean, that's the only way they survive.
I just put rims on the cart, with the horse.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Spinners.
dude. Spinners. That's
Rims and
right.
Spinners.
Rolling with the homies.
Me rolling.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Hey.
but the other is the idea of restraint, and that's through the Christian idea.
That's the Holy Spirit, baby.
That's the Holy Spirit, letting the
Yeah.
Holy
So that's
Spirit
why
guide
I don't
us.
think it can thrive in this environment. It's kind of like good bacteria versus bad bacteria. It's like, I don't think that it
Probiotic.
It has no, we are the probiotic. I don't know. There's no surviving in this atmosphere, especially with a country that's armed.
But does communism end here? Does it stagnate, or with the singularity and this emergence of these new technologies, does it accelerate and become more widespread and finally reach its utopia?
I think it'll become more widespread. It will accelerate, and the irony is Christians will start forming their own communes.
That'll
Yeah,
be crazy.
that's a
And
great
on that note,
that's
now
a
just
great
like
point.
property.
Yeah,
With private property
and
inside of
actually,
it.
that's kind of good. And we will sum that up here. That's kind of a little bit of a funny paradox. The monastic communities,
Yeah.
in the Dark Ages, preserved a lot of the learning that we have today, like the classical texts, including the Bible manuscripts.
Right.
They were
Thank the Irish.
communist
Yeah.
in involuntarily living and sharing and preserving. So in a weird way, the Christianity, again, that's why Butterfield says these are dangerous truths in the hands of anyone who's not a Christian.
There we go.
Yeah.
But the difference is that we can say, and I think it's important too, of all the critiques about property and inequality, we can say, like, listen, like, every person's made in the image of God. They have spiritual equality before God, and the future is bright, and we're sinners, and the dividing line of evil and good comes down to our heart. And that prevents us from
Solzhenitsyn.
cruelty. Yeah, that prevents us from doing the things like killing every opponent.
Amen.
But do you think it's going to prevent us from missionizing or going to being as missionaries to the zombies in the city down just a mile away?
That's a great question. Friends, that might be another podcast, actually, how to do that. And that'll be a big challenge. We've talked about that in our private conversations. Friends, actually, let's ask that question to you. What is going to be the future? You can add that in the comments.
Yeah.
Let us
What's the
know.
future?
And honestly, let us know of a future podcast episode you'd like us to do, so we can talk about this today. Some of these things are more speculative, but we know the Lord got some of the Christians through the hellish times of the Soviet Union. We have so many testimonies, Richard Wurmbrand, others that made it through, and through love. That's one
Right.
thing that Wurmbrand points out. He says, I had to learn to love my jailers who tortured me, because
Love
if I
you
didn't,
guys.
I'd become just like them.
Yes. And he legitimately, authentically loved them.
He overcame them by not imbibing the very hatred they had towards him.
That's wild.
So read that book, Torture for Christ.
Right.
Like and subscribe. Hit us
Stay
up in the
tuned.
comments.
Stay tuned for the next episode.
Smash that like button.
Share
Yes.
this podcast with every single person you know. Literally every single person you know.
Yep.
Become our 91st
We're not
follower.
Soros funded. Okay, bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.